So the next section is all about being emotionally intelligent with children. Now, we can't be emotionally intelligent with children until we are emotionally intelligent ourselves. And that's why I've taken you through the 10 steps where you can learn all about you and how you feel, how you express yourself, what you think, your own values, your own beliefs. Because here's the thing about human behavior in life is that the more self-aware you are about the way you feel about you and the way you express you, the more you start understanding about other people's behavior and why they do what they do. Now, being emotionally intelligent with children does take a lot of practice because, as I said before, that being emotionally intelligent is a new way of life. It's a new way of being. It's a new way of embracing, accepting, and living your life. So you have got to continuously practice for you to become that new, improved version of who you are. So just like you learn to practice your new language when you start learning French or Afrikaans or Dutch or Italian or whatever it is, it's exactly the same way with emotional intelligence. So the more you practice, the better you get at it, and the more you start understanding other people. So the biggest thing here about being emotionally intelligent with children all comes back to you, how you are with yourself, how you feel, and especially if you're working with children in a one-on-one situation, the more calm you are, the more accepting you are of yourself, the easier it is to show and role model to children how to be emotionally intelligent. Because not only with teaching and with coaching and with being in a leadership position is it important to role model that, but even as a parent, when you role model to your children what your relationship with yourself is like, you are showing them how to have a relationship and a friendship with themselves. So parenting and working with children, to me, is always much more effective when you do it from a leadership perspective. And being a leader means that you are that person that you want your children to become. You are that person who you are teaching children about. So you have to, it's got to be from a role modeling example. And that's why it's so important that it starts with you first. Now, the thing about children is that I said to you that their emotional brain switches on around about 4 years old. Sometimes it's a little bit earlier. And then children are all about emotions and operating from their emotional brain until they turn 24, 25. And as I explained, sometimes it happens sooner. So that's why it's so much more important that you are calm when you're dealing with children, that you are the one that is showing the way, because everything for them is about emotion. Absolutely everything. So the way they react, the way they respond, the way they deal with life and with friendships and with relationships. With kids, there's a lot of drama. It always seems like there's a lot of drama. But it's because they are ruled by their emotional brain. And the other thing is, because emotions are so contagious, children often don't know the difference between what is their emotion, what is somebody else's emotion. They also, like chameleons, because children are finding their way and they're finding out who they are. And specifically when they get to preteens or tween stage, as some people call it, and teenagers, because they're sort of testing and experimenting and see what they're trying to decide what are their values, what do they like about life, what do they like about people, and then they adapt their personality. So they become chameleons because they're testing out to see what is it that they want to take for themselves. And that's the way your personality adapts, is because you get to meet people, you like certain aspects of their personality, and you go, oh, I like that. I'm actually going to take that for myself. And then you bring it into your own personality. And that is what children do. And you'll find that people who are not emotionally intelligent and who have never, ever got to know themselves, you'll find that even adults do this, because until you've got to the point where you know, like, and love yourself, you also, and especially if you're a people pleaser, you'll find that a lot of adults will adapt and be chameleons. And, you know, when they're with this group of friends, they adapt to suit that group. When they're with a different group of friends, they adapt to be like that group. When they're with their family, they adapt. And that's a classic sign of somebody who doesn't know who they are or who likes who they are. So with children, because they work from their emotional brain all the time and they can't really think rationally and logically, it's very important for you to be very sensitive to that and to teach them how to differentiate between their own emotions, how to differentiate between their thoughts and somebody else's thoughts, their voice and somebody else's voice. And obviously we're going to teach you all of this in the advanced program when you start learning how to teach children and in the additional teaching that we give you. But I want you to be aware of it. So if you recall from the section about beliefs, I spoke about how the brain works and the different frequencies in the brain waves and how we have delta, theta, alpha and beta waves. Now, in the delta state, it's the slowest brain waves that move. So that's kind of the slowest movement that is going on in your brain. And babies operate in the delta wave state. And this already starts in the womb. But when they become toddlers, they then operate mostly in a theta state. Now, the theta state is the state where children and adults as well, we learn the most when our brain is in theta state. So as adults, we do go back into a theta state just before we go to sleep and just as we're waking up. But children's brains are in a theta state up until the age of 7. So what does this mean? This means that this is when they learn the most in their life and the quickest, because it's almost like their brain is open for receiving. So any bit of information is just downloaded. There's no filter. So sometimes we think that children don't hear what we have to say. We think that if we've got some movie running in the background and they're in the next room, that it's not going to affect them. But here's the thing, with children, they pick up every single little bit of information, whether it's seeing it, hearing it, feeling it, everything in those first 7 years, because there is no filter. Now, when they get to the age of 7, they then start developing a kind of a filter, because we all of our brains have filters. So we then only start receiving certain information that is of interest with us, or should I say that is of interest to us. Because if we had to receive all that information the whole time, you can imagine how overwhelming it is, because we receive thousands and thousands and thousands of bits of information into our brains. So our brains have to create these filters, otherwise our heads would literally explode. And it also shows you, it gives you an understanding of why children are so hyper and so busy before the age of 7, because they're just getting all this information all the time. They're learning. There's no filter and they're continuously processing it. That's why they're so exhausted at the end of the day as well. So the reason I'm explaining this to you is that so that you can understand why it's so important to help your children, because they're in the state of learning all the time, and that us as adults have to act as a rational brain for them. And because they can't think rationally, they can't think logically, everything for them is about emotions. So you can understand now why it's so important for them to learn how to manage their emotions, because if they don't, they are going to get to a situation where they've either learned how to suppress their emotions, or they're going to be always ruling their lives from their emotional brains. So learning this information and learning this new language of emotional intelligence from a young age means that they grow up with these skills for life. Just like when they say, if you want to teach a child a new language, do it at a really young age, because then it's a foundation skill for them. It's just buried. in their brain, it's in their mind. So they always have these skills and know they have this inner knowing of what to do with it. They know how to speak this language because they understand it, because you've taught it to them in their theta state. And this is the exact reason why we exclusively focus on children from the age of 4 upwards, because this is when they absorb that information. This is where they are open to it. And this is where it's going to just be imprinted almost into their DNA, because just like you never ever forget how to speak English or Italian or whatever that language is that you were taught, that you grew up with, you're never ever going to forget the emotional intelligence life skills when you learn it at such a young age. So yes, so coming back to being emotionally intelligent with children, it's all about you being aware, you having an understanding of your own emotions, your own behavior, your own psychology, and then developing your empathy so that you can understand it from a child's perspective and helping them with that. Right, so the next sections are just to give you a deeper understanding of human behavior. So every section here in Art is all about what makes us who we are and the reasons we do the things we do.